Hello, everyone. Welcome to Estrogen's Last Hurrah, the truth about perimenopause. My name is Dr. Blessing, and I am going to be guiding you through this presentation today. So if you have any questions, make sure you put them in the chat box. We're going to do a quiz about halfway through. It's just a true or false quiz, just kind of like to test your knowledge. It's not very serious. It's just so you can remember some of the things I go over. It'll help reinforce some of the points. And then, and then I'll answer questions again at the end. So during the presentation, if you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat. I'll answer those halfway through. And then if you have questions after that, again, put them in the chat and we'll answer those questions at the end. So you're probably wondering who I am. Hi, my name is Dr. Blessing. I've been a nutritionist for over 14 years, and I've always helped women, always worked with women in some capacity. So I entered perimenopause about 2.5 years ago, and that's when I started kind of doing deep dives into perimenopause because number one, I didn't know whether or not I was in perimenopause or not because I just had no idea. I thought that women in their 50s and over 50 entered perimenopause, and that was not the case. So for me, I did a lot of tracking of my symptoms, ruled everything else out with blood work, no underlying conditions. And then I realized when the hot flashes came that, oh no, at 38 and a half years, I was in perimenopause, which was quite shocking to me. Um, and so my goal is really to educate women so they learn about perimenopause, know the signs and the symptoms, and so you don't feel alone. You know that these symptoms are normal, and then you'll be able to make more educated decisions when you talk with your healthcare providers. So today we're going to talk about estrogen and the role that it plays in the body. And then we're also going to talk about estrogen and perimenopause. So how fluctuating estrogen and progesterone levels during perimenopause can lead to so many different symptoms. So just a reminder, at the end of our session, I'll share how you can take the next step. So if you're interested in personalized support, I offer a free perimenopause confidence and clarity call, and we'll talk about that at the end. So if you're new to me, I always touch on the basics. So what is perimenopause? So perimenopause is a natural transition between a woman's fertile years, so premenopause and menopause. Menopause is basically once you have gone an entire year without having your period, that one day is menopause. Anything after that is postmenopause. But the despite the fact that words have meaning, people will just toss menopause on perimenopause and postmenopause. But it is important to really understand the distinction, especially when you're talking about symptoms that you're having. So, for example, I did a presentation last Monday about unmasking perimenopause, allergies, food sensitivities, and autoimmune conditions. And there was a woman there, she said she'd been listening to a couple of my workshops, and she's like, I'm in menopause, which she means postmenopause. Can you do something? Can you do a presentation for women 69 and up? And so for her, she's hopping on here probably thinking that everything it falls under menopause when there are it's the terms perimenopause, premenopause, menopause are referring to very, very specific things. And so if anyone is interested in that, I will be doing a class for women 69 and up to help them really support their health during postmenopause, but that's not what this presentation is about. So during this time, the ovaries stop producing estrogen. And there are three different forms of estrogen, and we're going to touch on that a little bit later. But estradiol is the form of estrogen that is the highest before you enter perimenopause. And so the fluctuating levels and the decrease in production of estradiol by the ovaries is what results in this whole variety of different symptoms that women experience during perimenopause. And one thing to note is every woman is different. So one woman may have hot flashes while some women don't have any symptoms at all. Some women will have increased anxiety and depression. Some will have rage. So it really is important to know that there is no cookie cutter perimenopause journey. Every woman's journey is unique. And so it's important to note that. So if you just joined, go ahead and mute yourself, please. So we're going to talk about the most common, I should say, perimenopause symptoms. And as you see, there are quite a variety of symptoms here. And this isn't even the short of it. This is just a few. I found this a while back and I thought it was a really good um, visual for how, well, number one, for where all these estrogen receptors are. They're everywhere. And then how the decreasing levels of estrogen and other hormones, but mainly estrogen, can produce so many different symptoms. So, what is estrogen? Estrogen is a sex hormone that plays a foundational and pivotal role in a woman's health. And of course, back to this picture. Oh, whoa, wait a minute. Oops. So like I was mentioning, there are three different types of, or three different forms of estrogen. Estradiol is the most prevalent in premenopause, which is during your fertile years. Estriol is Estriol is produced during pregnancy, and then estrone is the most prevalent when you are in postmenopause. And so, of course, we have this estriol, main form of estrogen during pregnancy, estrone, the only form of estrogen that your body will make in postmenopause. And of course, estradiol is the most common form of estrogen before you hit perimenopause. So, estrogen and perimenopause. So, I've already touched on it that we have estrogen receptors throughout the entire body and in every organ system. And as estrogen levels decrease during perimenopause, and so estrogen levels actually decrease and increase, so it fluctuates. But during perimenopause, it affects each system differently. And these perimenopausal symptoms occur as a result of that system's response to the now unstable and erratic levels of estrogen. Okay, so we have this again. So estrogen in the brain. So I know I've met a lot of women who have uh, told me they were suffering from either the mood swings, brain fog, not memory loss, but short-term, they have forgetfulness, their short-term memories getting worse, and then of course anxiety, depression, and rage. So we know that there are multiple estrogen receptors in the brain. So estrogen helps our brain produce different types of neurotransmitters. So as levels are decreasing and increasing, this is where you get those swings. So as estrogen levels are decreasing, what will happen is the the brain is not making as much of that neurotransmitter. And so same thing for anxiety, depression, and rage. So some women who suffer from that, those neurotransmitters, serotonin, dopamine, are not being produced in the levels that they used to be. And so the brain is going to respond to this. So there are a lot of estrogen receptors in the brain. And as these levels decrease, different areas of the brain don't get as much stimulation, and this leads to the cognitive difficulties. And so basically, the cognitive difficulties are the forgetfulness, the brain fog, the anxiety, depression, or rage. And estrogen fluctuations can lead to mood disorders and sleep issues. We know that if you have sleep issues, that can play a significant role in your mood, because if you're not getting enough sleep, your cortisol is going to be high. You're going to have increased inflammation in the brain and other parts of the body. And we know that sleep plays a pivotal role in our mood in general. So anything that's going to interfere with sleep, which in some women, the fluctuating estrogen levels does affect their sleep negatively. Anything that does that is going to play a role in the mood, whether you're very anxious, whether you have depression, and then as we're going to touch on a little bit later, inflammation, weight gain, insulin resistance. So the brain has to adapt to a new hormonal environment because right before perimenopause, your estradiol levels were stable. So during perimenopause, it becomes unstable because it's constantly going up and down and up and down and doing whatever it wants. And this can happen within hours, not just even days. So the brain is trying to adapt to this. It's trying to get used to, okay, so estrogen is up 1 hour and it's down another hour when it used to just be level. And so this is one of the things that we think is what causes those symptoms of brain fog. So estrogen plays a significant role in maintaining glucose metabolism in the brain. Basically, the brain uses glucose. Anytime we eat a food, our body breaks it down, sends that glucose to the brain. I mentioned insulin resistance. So anytime you're insulin resistant, that means your cells are not effectively taking glucose into the cell. And so when that happens, that's going to affect your brain's ability to perform. Because if you can't get those sugars into the brain, into the cells, you can't get it into the brain cells, and then your brain is working without energy. So I don't know if any of you were on my heart health presentation. We went deep into this, especially um, insulin resistance and the whole mechanism and all that causes. But it doesn't just affect the heart and the cardiovascular system. It also affects the brain too. So during perimenopause, a decline in glucose metabolism, which is basically just the use of glucose for energy, can contribute to other cognitive deficits. And again, that is the brain fog, the anxiety, depression, the decreased short-term memory. So estrogen also plays a significant role in bone and muscle health, and it plays a significant role in bone density. So as estrogen levels again start to decrease and increase, become very erratic, it plays a significant role. It can interfere with bone. Um, so our bones are built by osteoblasts and osteoclasts. So they're just basically cells that build bone and cells that break down bone to remodel it. For example, this is important when in children, right? Because they have growth spurts, so there's constant building and then remodeling so that the bone can grow longer. So what happens is it touches a little switch, and what happens is we have an increased risk of developing osteoporosis because estrogen is important for building bone. But when you enter perimenopause, due to the fact that estrogen levels are no longer stable, what will happen is osteoclasts, which are the bone cells that break down and remodel, start to be more active than the osteoblasts. This leads to weakening of the bone and, of course, increased risk of fracture, increased risk of developing osteoporosis. So, yeah, so decreasing estradiol levels lead to increased bone resorption, which is basically the breakdown of bone, but you're not getting that balanced bone creation. So you're having more breakdown than creation. And so this is why it's important to make sure that you're strength training during perimenopause and in general. Definitely make sure you're strength training during postmenopause too, but it really is important to do as much strength training as you can during perimenopause so you can stimulate the building of that bone. And so basically bone builds when pressure is added to it. So that's another way to kind of turn on or trigger the cells that build bone by lifting weights, doing strength training, resistance training, body weight training, do some sort of strength training. And what that does is it prevents you from developing osteoporosis and, of course, decreases your risk of fracture. And so women actually lose more lean muscle mass during perimenopause. And of course, this is because estrogen has a protective effect on the lean muscle, and it helps stimulate growth and health of of lean muscle. And so what happens is during perimenopause, we're losing that protective effect of estrogen, and we need to do something lifestyle wise to help overturn that, right? And so making sure, again, lifting weights, loading those muscles, increasing your lean muscle mass. Apparently, there's a period in time between perimenopause and menopause where there's a significant drop in lean muscle mass. So it's important to make sure you're building. So whatever amount of muscle you lose, you're not going to be at risk. So I always say do whatever you can, carry the grocery bags in the store, anything that will help you build and protect that muscle. So reduced estrogen levels lead to declines in muscle function and size, which means you have weaker muscles, and then you have an increased risk of developing something called sarcopenia. So I don't know if you've seen like older men and women and like their muscles have just literally shrunk, right? So you can prevent that by staying active and by lifting weights. And I don't know if y'all have seen, I think there's like a 80 or 90-year-old lady that like body builds and she can run with the youngest of them, but she is very, very driven. And you can see that she does not have any muscle atrophy, any muscle wasting. Her lean muscle mass is there. And I'm not sure when she started, but you can find them. There are quite a few older women who are in 60s, 70s, 80s who are strength training, building, and they still have their lean muscle mass. And that helps them age better because the more lean muscle mass you have, the more insulin sensitive you're going to be. And they have a lower risk of having severe falls where they have fractures because lean muscle helps protect you from falls and also helps protect the bone. In addition to the fact that doing any type of strength training, especially when you're in perimenopause and beyond, it helps strengthen the bone too. So it actually decreases the risk of fracture. So hormonal fluctuations can lead to joint stiffness, muscle aches, and bone pain. And this really does affect quality of life because usually when people have joint pain or muscle pain, they don't want to do anything. Our bodies were created for motion. Now, you may not be as active as you were when you were in your 20s, but our bodies were still created for motion. And when you don't move, you lose it. The joints will become more stiff. It'll be harder to build that muscle because your muscles will be weaker and it'll take a significantly longer amount of time. So it's just important to make sure that you are strength training, doing resistance training, body weight training, whatever you need to do. So estrogen and metabolism. So this is really important because estrogen is anti-inflammatory and estrogen is it also affects the way, so insulin helps us be more insulin sensitive. So insulin sensitivity is when you eat food, your pancreas releases insulin. Insulin is like a little key. It's like a little lock. It opens the door to the cell. The sugars from the food you've eaten go into the cell. The cell has energy. You're functioning optimally. So insulin resistance occurs because as we are losing that protective role of estrogen and helping us be more insulin sensitive, we enter into a stage where we're more insulin resistant, which means we're having brain fog, we're having muscle pain, um, we're putting on weight, we're not getting the best sleep, we're stressed. So all of these things lead to the difficulty it is for women to lose weight during perimenopause and after, and it also increases inflammation in the body. So there are ways that you can actually become more insulin sensitive, and I've already mentioned one of them, which is making sure that you strength train. The more muscle you have, muscle has insulin receptors on them. So the more lean muscle you have, the more receptors you have to respond to the sugar in food. And it's even suggested that one simple way to increase your insulin sensitivity is to go for a walk after every meal or do squats or do something that engages the muscles. So if you're insulin resistant, and of course you would know this by looking at your blood work, also symptoms, what'll happen is if you're insulin resistant, going on the walks or doing squats or doing any type of thing that engages the muscles after a meal, it pushes that sugar into the muscles. The muscles are very metabolically active. They're going to use that sugar up, the glucose up, so it's not sitting in your blood cells, in your blood vessels, causing inflammation and um, not doing what it's supposed to do, which is providing energy for the cells. So it's definitely very important to, even if, you're not sure whether you're insulin resistant or not, either way, during perimenopause, women become more insulin resistant. So again, the walking 10 minutes after a meal or doing squats or engaging the muscles in any way for at least 10 minutes is really good to help you balance your blood sugar levels. And so estrogen is anti-inflammatory. So when we lose the protective effects of estrogen, it's important for us to make sure that we make up with diet and lifestyle. So diet would be, eating more fish, eating foods that are inflammatory, so spices, turmeric, cayenne pepper, paprika, doing what you can with your nutrition to really support your body's ability to tone down inflammation, making sure you're getting enough protein. That protein also helps promote lean muscle mass. It also helps provide the building blocks to repair and restore bone. So as we can see, estrogen plays a significant role and it touches multiple areas, not just one body system. And then one thing I've also noted when working with clients is that once women kind of get their blood sugar balanced, it's easier for them to lose weight. It's easier for them to lose weight, they have increased energy, and they have increased um, mental clarity. So that's something that's very important to know. So estrogen, the gut and immune systems. So when we talk about the digestive health or the digestive system and the immune system, they're always together because the digestive system and the immune system are really closely intertwined. The digestive system is the only system in which we're taking in foreign things that may have bacteria or other foreign things that are not our body that our body is going to need to launch a defense against. And so this is why I put them together because they're very, very closely related. So we have our microbiome, we have the good and the what we call the bad bacteria. Then we have inflammation, which is we're having inflammation due to the fact that we're losing the protective effects of estrogen. And so that inflammation, of course, is going to trigger an immune response. And this is why I always say in all of my workshops that inflammation does not just stay in one area. It affects the entire body. And then digestive health. So believe it or not, estrogen plays a significant role in our digestive health. So perimenopause can significantly affect digestive health due to the fluctuations between estrogen and progesterone. And one of the most common complaints is bloating and gas. So estrogen helps maintain the tone of the digestive system. When estrogen levels are decreasing, the tone. So when we're talking about tone, we're talking about the ability of the digestive system to push food through it. And so when you have a decreased tone, what will happen due to the decreased estrogen, what will happen is digestion will slow down. Food will be sitting in the stomach, the small intestine, in the small intestine for longer periods of time, where they can be fermented by the bacteria that are in the gut. And so what happens is when these bacteria start breaking down the food that's sitting there too long, what'll happen is the end result is gas production, right? That is what happens when the bacteria are breaking down the food. And so our digestive system is a tube, and so there's really nowhere for the gas to go except for you to burp it out or to and like to for flatulence. So there's only two ways. And so either way, until the gas can be released, whether it goes up or down, you're going to have that feeling of bloating because the gas has to eventually find its way out of the digestive system. So constipation, again, when you have decreased tone, you have less movement, less peristalsis. Peristalsis is what moves the food through the digestive system. And when you don't have as much motility, what happens is, again, the food is slower. And in the large intestine, what will happen is if waste sits in your large intestine for too long, the body is very efficient at what it does. And so it'll reabsorb any water that was in there. And so what happens is constipation, which is not good because when you're constipated, your body can reabsorb excess estrogen or excess toxins that the body is trying to get rid of. So this is important this is why it's really, really important to stay and make sure you're well hydrated and make sure that you are eating different types of fiber to help get it moving, to help get your digestive tract or digestive system moving. So some people will have diarrhea. Some people, of course, some women have an increased symptoms of acid reflux or heartburn. This can also be triggered by stress. But again, the lower estrogen levels, again, I was mentioning that estrogen has an effect on the tone of the muscles in the digestive system. This includes the esophagus. So there's a little sphincter that's supposed to stay closed, but when it's weak, it opens up, and that's what leads to acid reflux. That's what leads to content in the stomach going up into the lower esophagus and causing that burning feeling that you feel. So indigestion and nausea. So of course, digestive discomfort is common during perimenopause. And again, it's due to that decreased tone and the slowing down of the transit of food from the stomach to the small intestine to the large intestine. So perimenopause significantly affects the microbiome. And so I mentioned the microbiome and how they're the beneficial and the harmful bacteria in the gut. And so we talked about inflammation and how estrogen is anti-inflammatory and how when estrogen levels are going up and down, our body is in a more inflammatory state. So when our body is in a more inflammatory state, it actually favors the harmful bacteria, and this can lead to a whole range of horrible issues. So this is why it's important to make sure you're getting different types of fiber, soluble fiber, insoluble fiber, resistant starches. It's important to make sure you're managing your stress, and then make sure that you are, if you need to, you can take a probiotic, but I always recommend improving your gut health with food, but doing what you can to kind of help support your digestive system. And one of the easiest ways is to diversify the digestive system in the gut is by eating a wide range of fiber, and you can add fermented foods. But if you are histamine intolerant, there are other low histamine foods that you can eat. So you will be really sensitive to fermented food. So if that's you, ignore that. Find other fiber-rich foods that are not fermented, and that will help reset the balance between the harmful and the beneficial bacteria in your gut. So reduced gut diversity is usually observed in women who are in perimenopause. And this is associated with increased inflammation and obesity in women who are in postmenopause. So estrogen, skin, and hair. So estrogen also plays a significant role in our skin's ability to stay hydrated. So estrogen helps stimulate the oil glands in our skin to produce oil so that our skin stays hydrated. But again, as estrogen levels are decreasing, we lose that. Those oil glands produce less and less oil, and our skin becomes more and more dry. In regards to collagen, estrogen is also important for collagen production. And as estrogen levels decrease, this plays a role in how much collagen our skin is actually producing. So you can see how estrogen is playing a significant role in multiple areas of the body and multiple different body systems. So estrogen and vaginal and urinary health. So we know that estrogen is important for maintaining the lubrication of the vaginal tract. And again, as estrogen levels decrease, there's less lubrication. So women will have symptoms of dryness, pain with sex, um, increased frequency in regards to running to the bathroom because estrogen plays a role in the tone of the bladder. The bladder is a muscle. And so estrogen plays a role in that, in the tone of the bladder, the ability of the bladder to hold urine for long periods of time. And so what happens is as estrogen levels are decreasing, that tone decreases, and some women will find themselves running to the bathroom a little bit more often than before. So estrogen is also responsible for the pH balance. And there can be an increase in UTIs, urinary tract infections, during perimenopause because estrogen is responsible for keeping the lactobacillus in the vaginal tract healthy. So, unlike the digestive system, the microbiome in the vaginal system is it's so a healthy vaginal microbiome is just full of lactobacillus. So when so a the vaginal microbiome is not meant to be diverse. Like for example, the gut microbiome, right? The more different bacteria you have in the gut, the better, right? But the vaginal tract is very different. It's the most predominant type of bacteria that should be there are lactobacillus. Now there are some variations, but for the most part, it's more of a homogeneous makeup of bacteria. And when it gets diverse is when women start having UTIs and things like that. And it's more common during perimenopause, the disruption of that balance. So there is a significant decrease in the lactobacillus species. And this decline is associated with changes in the vaginal pH and moisture levels, which we touched on. So there's increased micro so during perimenopause, there's increased microbial diversity in the vaginal microbiome, which actually makes women more susceptible to developing infections. And of course, that's why there's an increase in urinary UTIs, urinary tract infections during perimenopause. And of course, remember, this is not every woman, right? Women will have different symptoms, and the best way to kind of know what's normal is if you ask your female relatives, like your mom, grandmother, aunts, things like that. But usually your mom and your grandmother, ask them what symptoms they had. This doesn't mean you'll have all the symptoms they have, but there should be a couple that you have that are the same. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to do the quiz now. And so what I'm going to have you do is I'm going to have you put true or false in the, um, let's stop sharing. I'm going to have you put true or false in the chat. So the first question is estrogen only affects first statement is estrogen only affects the reproductive system and has no impact on other areas of the body. So true or false? Okay, good. So the second one is during perimenopause, estrogen levels steadily decline without fluctuation. True or false? So during perimenopause, estrogen levels steadily decline without any fluctuations. Okay. So the next one, number 3, is brain fog, anxiety, and memory lapses can be linked to estrogen fluctuations. Okay. The next one, number 4, hot flashes and night sweats are the only symptoms caused by estrogen changes in perimenopause. Okay. Number 5, estrogen plays a role in blood sugar regulation and metabolism. Okay. Number 6, bone density loss during perimenopause is primarily due to declining estrogen levels. Okay. Next one is number 7. Heart palpitations and blood pressure changes can be symptoms of perimenopause. Okay. Number 8, gut health and the immune system are unaffected by estrogen levels. Is that true or false, ladies? Okay. Number 9, lifestyle changes, including nutrition and stress management, can help balance out estrogen levels. Okay. Number 10, there are over 100 possible symptoms linked to estrogen fluctuations during perimenopause. Okay. Y'all did a pretty good job. Number 1 is false. Estrogen affects multiple body systems, including the brain, heart, bones, metabolism, and immune function. Number 2 is false. Estrogen levels fluctuate unpredictably, causing a roller coaster of symptoms. Number 3 is true. Estrogen influences brain function, including memory, mood, and cognitive or mental clarity. Number 4 is false. Estrogen fluctuations can cause a wide range of symptoms beyond hot flashes. This includes joint pain, bloating, fatigue, and more. Number 5 is true. Estrogen helps regulate insulin sensitivity and metabolism, impacting weight gain and energy levels. Number 6 is true. Estrogen helps maintain bone density, and its decline increases the risk of osteoporosis. Number 7, number 7 is true. Estrogen supports cardiovascular function, and its decline can contribute to heart-related symptoms. Number 8 is false. Estrogen plays a key role in gut microbiome balance and immune system regulation. Number 9 is true. Nutrition, movement, sleep, and stress management can help mitigate or deal with symptoms and support hormonal balance. And then number 10 is true. There are over 100 symptoms linked to estrogen fluctuations during perimenopause. So y'all have done a really, really good job. So we're going to hop into the rest of the presentation and let's go back. And remember that if you have any questions, go ahead and leave them below and then we'll answer those questions later. Okay. So nutrition. So I touched on a couple of things that we should do for nutrition, nutrition-wise, to help support your body during perimenopause and beyond, because this also applies in when you're postmenopausal. So making sure you're eating 30 to 40 grams of protein at each meal, eating 30 grams of fiber a day, and then cutting back on refined carbs. And some other things you can do is making sure that you're eating healthy fats, so walnuts, nuts, getting omega-3s from fatty fish, salmon, mackerel, and then just really incorporating these into a your normal routine. So your normal, um, I don't like to say diet, but the way that you eat, because the easier it is for you to do that, it'll help you be more consistent. And during perimenopause, consistency is key. For me, I wish someone had told me, hey, you need to make sure you're strength training and you're making sure you're getting enough protein, because that's really what I struggle with now, getting the 30 to 40 grams of protein. I'm fine with fiber. It's getting that protein, and then sometimes I'm not hungry, but I know I need to eat it for blood sugar balance and to help keep insulin resistance at bay. So it's easier when it's a habit than when you have to start it afresh. But knowing that you need to eat to decrease inflammation and balance your blood sugar levels so you don't have to deal with insulin resistance. It's when you know how to do it, when you're used to doing it, when you have a plan, when you have meals and you have a general idea of, what is 30 to 40 grams of protein or 30 grams of fiber, a day, 30 to 40 grams of protein each meal and 30 grams of fiber a day. What does that look like? And so I find that a lot of women are get caught up there. So either they're not eating enough fiber, they're not eating enough protein, or they're not managing their stress. So some of these things are easier when you know it right off the bat than, when you're in the middle of perimenopause, you're tired, you know, it's easier to do it before then when you have the energy and you have the time to develop a habit. But we know that our bodies are adapt really well, and so it can be done. It just takes a little bit of planning. So lifestyle. So making sure that you're prioritizing sleep. Um, just a few nights of, so if you have, studies have shown that if you miss just 1 to 2 nights of sleep, that it makes you more insulin resistant. And this isn't even adding the stress from work, stress from life, stress from the all the changes that are occurring in your body during perimenopause. But really make sure to prioritize sleep. Make sure or try to create an evening or a wind down or a sleep routine, something that tells your brain, hey, it's time to get ready to go to bed, and do it consistently so the brain just knows, hey, this is it. Like, we're getting ready for bed. Um, Walking or doing 25 to 30 squats after eating is a great way to make sure that you are maintaining your blood sugar levels and moving towards insulin sensitivity and not insulin resistance, because walking or doing any form of exercise is pushing that glucose into the muscle cells, and the muscle cells use it, right? We don't want it sitting in our blood vessels. Again, prioritizing the strength training and walking, and this is for bone health and promoting and maintaining and building lean muscle mass. Making sure you manage your stress, because cortisol and estrogen have a field day. So it's important to make sure that you're finding creative ways to manage your stress, and whether it's talking with a friend, going for a walk outside, going for a run, whatever you need to do, find creative ways to manage your stress. And this helps support your body during perimenopause while you're losing the protective effects of estrogen. Okay, so let me check for any questions. Okay, herbs. So it depends on what you need the herbs for. So during the past couple of workshops, what do you need the herbs for, YR? Um, Black cohosh does help for hot flashes. I have a couple of women who I talked with on a perimenopause clarity call, and I have to follow up with them next week and see if the black cohosh is working for them. So that has been shown to help with hot flashes. Balancing her hormones. Well, it just depends on what hormones you need to be balanced, right? So are you having hot flashes? Are you trying to balance your blood sugar? Because you get different answers there. So for example, I'm working with some women we're going to do a 30-day blood sugar reset. And some of them, I've mentioned berberine, which is an herb that can help, or it's a supplement that can help balance your blood sugar levels. It helps your body process insulin a little bit better and can help decrease your blood sugar levels over, I think it's 3 to 4 months. It takes a little bit of time for it to work. So it depends on what the herbs are for and which hormones. So if you can be more specific in regards to hormones, um, okay, rise mushroom. So Rada, I think the rise mushroom, I think it has like adaptogenic herbs in it, ashwagandha and some other herbs. And I think the whole point of the rise mushroom is to replace coffee because a lot of people, they've gotten used to drinking coffee. And in some women, coffee can tip their cortisol levels, so it can increase their cortisol levels, and that'll make them a little bit more insulin resistant. It'll lead to poor blood sugar regulation, and so you can try it. I haven't tried it. What I do is I don't drink coffee every day like I used to. I mean, I don't need it. I like to drink it for more routine and like a habit, but I don't drink coffee as much. I wouldn't say cut it out, but I add protein to my coffee. So when I drink coffee, I add protein to it. And then when I use like a chocolate milk is high protein. So it's a collagen powder. So there's a brand called Vital Proteins. And what I do is I add two little they have a little it's not a spoon. They have a little measuring cup thing. I add two of those into it and it melts. I usually add it to hot coffee. I think some of them you can add to cold, but I add that to my coffee and tea. I added it to my matcha this morning and I just drink it that way. And because I did that, that helps slow the absorption of any extra sugars that are in there, and it can help balance your blood sugar levels. So you can try it. The Rise coffee has some, uh, let me see, it has some adaptogenic herbs that help manage the stress response. So let me know if that helped, Rada. So so Charlotte asks, how do hysterectomy and menopause intersect? So a hysterectomy can actually throw you into early menopause. So that's what it does. It causes a early, an, or, ugh, sorry. Um, Having a hysterectomy throws you into perimenopause. Okay, an herb for estrogen dominance. So see, this is now your question is specific because there's all sorts of different um hormones that need balancing. So an herb for estrogen dominance. So chasteberry, licorice, milk thistle, raspberry leaf, red clover is a really popular one. Maca, MACA, black cohosh is in there too. And burdock root. Dandelion root too, and you can make a tea with the dandelion root. But red clover too is really good, and I know some women who are using raspberry leaf. So raspberry leaf, red clover, maca, black cohosh, milk thistle, and chasteberry licorice. What I would say is with these, make sure you're not taking any medications that are going to interfere with them. So always make sure you know your drug herb, your drug supplement interactions. And that is what I would say. That's the caveat I would give you when adding herbs to your routine. Make sure there are no interactions with possible medications. Okay, you said none. Okay, you're not taking good. That makes it even better. But my thing is always, I've seen people recommend herbs, and I'm like, make sure they're not taking any medication that it can interact with, because a lot of women are not aware of this. When you get an herb, you can just go buy it. You're not talking to a pharmacist. So it's important, everyone, I always try to say, make sure you know those interactions because some of them can be lethal. So you're not on medication, so that is great. So let me close up here. So you don't have to navigate perimenopause alone. These challenges that you're facing are real, and so are the solutions. So today is the first step towards feeling like yourself again. And so if you want to dive deeper, this is an invitation to get a personalized plan. And you'll get so during the perimenopause confidence and clarity call, I'll talk with you. I'll kind of get a feel for where you are. And then what I'll do is, based on our conversation or any questions that you ask, I will go ahead and create a personalized little plan for you. And so you can take that and do whatever you want with it. Also, something I wanted to mention is, let me go ahead and put the link for that in here if you are interested. So later in the month, I'm going to be doing um, a continued series. So you saw how I broke down all the different systems. I'm going to go and do a deeper dive. And so the classes will be for women who are struggling with those symptoms. And we'll get very, very deep into it. We'll talk about specific tweaks you can make to your diet, specific supplements, like y'all are not supplements, but herbs or supplements that y'all are asking about. We're going to dive deep into that. So if that's something you're interested in, go ahead and just put workshop. And what I'll do is I'll send out an email when that goes live, and you can pick whatever class is that interests you. Also, my 30-day blood sugar reset is starting on April 1st. So if you're interested in that, go ahead and let me know. And yes, Rada, I am going to be sending the recording. The replay will go out either tomorrow or Wednesday. So you'll get the replay and a summary of the workshop. So are there any questions before I go? Or does anyone need any information, extra information? So if I would like to ask you, if you give me like a mini testimonial, is there something that you learned that was really important, or just some little blurb so I can use it to promote other workshops? Okay, so that's it. Thank you all for taking time out of your evening to join the call. I'm glad you were able to show up, and hopefully you were able to learn something new. Okay, y'all, take care.